Over on my community tab, I asked you what versions of Zelda across the entire Zelda franchise you thought were the strongest, and in this video, I'm going to be going over my thoughts on this topic in a top 5 video structure. These 5 versions of Zelda are ranked by strength in my own personal opinion, with the very last incarnations of Zelda being the strongest. So make sure you stick around until the end so you can see if we agree or disagree on who the strongest version of Zelda is. And hey, feel free to list your top 5 strongest Zelda incarnations in the comments below at any point in this video. I'm D-Rock with Zelda Theory. I really appreciate you being here. Let's get it rolling. Over the last 36 years of Princess Zelda's reincarnation, we have seen extreme varying levels of strength in one of the most iconic characters of the Legend of Zelda series, or even Nintendo games in general. As the end of 2022 grows steadily closer, Nintendo is still maintaining almost complete silence over the upcoming Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, Tears of the Kingdom. Man, it still feels so good to actually have a title to that game after such a long time. There's still a ton of information we really don't know about the game, like, will there actually be legit dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom? What characters are going to reappear? Will the Twilight make a grand return? Man, oh man, I sure hope so. The very little bit of information we do know is that it's going to be a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, making it one of the very few Zelda games to feature the same characters as a previous title, as opposed to an incarnation of said characters. A couple examples of Zelda games I instantly think of are Ocarina of Time or The Wind Waker, as these games, while not the only ones in the series, feature the same Link or Zelda. This is excellent news to hear, especially if you're like me, a Zelda fan who quite frankly finds Zelda's characters exceptionally intriguing, regardless of which incarnation you are referring to. In various Zelda games, the legendary princess has gone through a crap ton of changes, right? Sometimes, despite being one of the biggest and most well-known characters of the series, a lot of the time she is only featured as a damsel in distress, with no real impact on the game's plot. Other times, she is a fierce warrior queen who would do anything to protect her people. Regardless of how her incarnation's personality is presented, Princess Zelda is always wise, strong, selfless, and in my opinion, extremely vital. However, not every version of our princess is equal in her strength. Let's start my Zelda strength tier list with the 3DS title, The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. The Zelda in A Link Between Worlds is the 12th Zelda in the Legend of Zelda series and the second Zelda chronologically in the Fallen Hero timeline. At her very young age, she rules the entire kingdom of Hyrule alone. When Link first meets her, he warns her that Ceres was attacked and was then turned into a painting by Yuga. She tells the young hero to swarm Sasharahala, I think I said that right, in Kakariko Village, and gives Link a charm that she has owned since childhood. When Hyrule Castle is under Yuga's attack, Link learns that the charm she gave is dependent of courage, which she gave to him in anticipation of the oncoming misfortune. When Link goes inside Hyrule Castle, he encounters a confrontation between Zelda and Yuga. Zelda then tells Yuga that his actions must cease to end and asks him how many more people he intends to kidnap, to which Yuga says he has been searching for all 7 sages of Hyrule. Zelda then accuses him of attempting to use the 7 sages to revive Ganon, but Yuga ignores her, of course, and turns her into a painting for her beauty. He then takes her painting to the highest point of the castle and escapes to Lorule. In Lorule, he uses the power of the 7 sages and Princess Zelda to revive Ganon, and merges with Ganon before all the paintings, saves Zelda's, are scattered across Lorule. After Link frees the sages and assembles the Triforce, he and Zelda use it to restore the Lorulean Triforce. A Link Between Worlds Zelda is one of the strongest in the franchise because, well, for one, there's literally 2 versions of her here, one being the light version, and the other being a more darker version of herself, and 2, because she is quite literally leading the land of Hyrule by herself. That is something that's more mentally and emotionally taxing, given how young Zelda is in this game. This version of Zelda gets the first spot on my strength tier list not because of her physical powers or brute strength, but more so because of the mental fortitude and strength it takes to rule the kingdom of Hyrule by herself at such a young age, and learning to accept the fact that she does have a darker side which needed to be controlled, for lack of a better word. Next up on my list of the strongest Zelda incarnations is the Zelda from Skyward Sword. The Zelda in Skyward Sword is the 11th Zelda appearing in the Legend of Zelda series, and as of the making of this video, is currently the earliest incarnation of Zelda chronologically to appear in-game. In Skyward Sword, Zelda, who is a daughter of Gapura, lives in Skyloft with her childhood friend Link, where they are both students at the Knight Academy. After playing the role of the goddess at the wing ceremony, Link and Zelda go for a beautiful, blissful flight together, when suddenly, out of nowhere, a twister pulls Zelda and her Loftwing below the clouds. This phenomenon is later revealed to have been caused by Girahim, one of the best villains in the Zelda series, who needs Zelda's soul to resurrect Demise, his master. Upon Zelda's arrival on the surface, however, she is rescued by the epic woman herself, Impa, before the Demon Lord can capture her. Link then begins to look for Zelda and eventually finds her in the Earth Spring, but Impa impedes him from reaching the young girl, and instead urges Zelda to continue praying at each goddess statue to finish purifying her body. Eventually, Link catches up with Zelda and Impa at the Temple of Time, right? But their reunion is cut extremely short when Girahim attacks the duo. In the midst of a hectic, action-packed moment, Zelda gives Link the goddess's heart before she and Impa escape through the Gate of Time, with Impa destroying the gate to escape Girahim's grasp. Link does manage to activate a second Gate of Time and meets with Zelda, who explains her true nature as the mortal reincarnation of the goddess Hylia before telling Link that she, as Hylia reborn, must remain in a deep sleep to keep Demise imprisoned within his seal. Before doing so, Zelda explains that the goddess needed someone with an unbreakable spirit to defeat Demise. However, Hylia, knowing that the young hero would throw himself headfirst into any danger without even a moment's doubt if it meant saving Zelda, used Link to try and bring about the destruction of Demise. She proceeds to seal herself into a crystal and sleep for thousands of years to ensure Demise's seal holds, and tells Link that he must find and use the Triforce to destroy Demise so that she will be able to wake up in their own time. I think this incarnation of Zelda is so cool and unique amongst the rest of the Zeldas in the series because she's one of the only versions of Zelda that is not a princess during the course of the game's events. As far as her strength and willingness to save Link, I think it goes without saying that she is strong in faith, and her duties that she is so willing to be Hylia's vessel in order to bring an end to the villain that started everything in The Legend of Zelda, Demise. To me, quite honestly, that's a tall tale sign of great strength. Much like the Zelda from A Link Between Worlds, this Zelda's strength is not merely in her physical abilities, but more in her willingness to fulfill her destiny and save Hyrule. I think it's so well done and beautifully showcased, and one of the many reasons why Skyward Sword is one of my all-time favorite Zelda games. I mean, of course, there's a ton of other reasons, but this is a pretty big one for me. I'm one of those rare Zelda fans that actually loved Skyward Sword, especially the remake that just came out. I'm still so blown away by how gorgeous that game looks in 60 frames per second. And hey, by the way, if you are new here, I create Zelda videos like Zelda news, speculation videos on upcoming Zelda titles, Zelda guides, and even top 5, top 10 Zelda videos just like this one here. So if you're enjoying the video so far, remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for any and all things Zelda. I appreciate you. Now, if you have been a part of the channel for a while, you probably predicted this next incarnation of Zelda coming, but not in the way you might think. The Zelda in Ocarina of Time and its direct sequel, Majora's Mask, is the 4th Zelda appearing in the Legend of Zelda series, and the 4th Zelda chronologically. Growing up in the halls of Hyrule Castle, young Princess Zelda, referred to by the Great Deku Tree as the Princess of Destiny, was growing concerned with one of her father's associates, the Gerudo King Ganondorf, and a vision of his treachery did not help matters in the slightest. Expressing her concerns with her guardian and nursemaid Impa, she continued to watch the Gerudo despite her inability to do anything about him. This eventually changed though when a young Kokiri boy named Link snuck into her garden courtyard. That was an amazing part of the game. Fast forwarding here to the conclusion of Ocarina of Time's story, Zelda sends Link, the hero of time, back to his childhood to regain his lost 7 years as a reward of sorts for his role in the war against Ganondorf. This would leave only the hero of time's legend behind him as he returned to the past and returned to Hyrule Castle to then warn the young Princess Zelda of events to come, which eventually leads to the tragic events of Majora's Mask. It is worth mentioning, Zelda crew, the actions made by this incarnation of Princess Zelda specifically were very crucial to the development of the Zelda timeline, since it was through Zelda's choices that 3 separate timelines were eventually created, making her instrumental in the history of Hyrule. Her plot with Link to retrieve the Triforce resulted in Ganondorf obtaining the Triforce of Power, eventually leading to Ganondorf besting Link in the final battle, and thus forming the Fallen Hero timeline. Should Link succeed in defeating Ganondorf, sending Link back to his own time afterwards created 2 timelines, the child timeline and the adult timeline. The latter of the 2 shatters the Triforce of Courage and vanquishes the hero in the adult timeline, resulting in Hyrule eventually being flooded. Zelda's strength in Ocarina of Time isn't strength as in combat or power, but like the last 2 incarnations of Zelda, her strength is in her mental fortitude, her wisdom, and her ability to have these prophetic visions, which ultimately led to saving Hyrule. She also helps Link in their escape from Ganon's castle by using her powers to magically remove the barriers blocking the exits. During the final battle between Link and Ganon, Princess Zelda uses her powers to restrain the King of Evil as Link delivers the final blow. This is such an epic scene still, Zelda crew. It gives me chills every single time when I get to the ending, man. Being the 7th sage though, she is the ruler of the rest of the 6 sages, and it is with her guidance that the sages seal Ganon in the void of the evil realm. With her powers as a sage, she is capable of returning Link to his original time by simply using the Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time's Zelda easily deserves a spot in my top 5 incarnations of Zelda in regards to her mental strength and her magical abilities. The last 3 incarnations of Zelda we have talked about were mostly about mental fortitude, the mental strength of standing the test of time, and Zelda's magical abilities. But these last 2 versions of Zelda are where we shift the focus of Zelda's mental strength to her brute and physical strength. The Zelda in Twilight Princess is the 9th Zelda appearing in the Legend of Zelda series, and the 2nd Zelda chronologically in the Child Timeline branch. In Twilight Princess, Zelda was the young matriarch of Hyrule until its invasion by Zant, the Twilight King, to whom she surrendered in order to prevent the deaths of herself and her people. Afterward, she is imprisoned inside a tower in Hyrule Castle. It is revealed that Zelda is unaffected by the Veil of Twilight Zant cast upon Hyrule and does not become a spirit like all the other inhabitants of the kingdom. As the bearer of the Triforce of Wisdom, Zelda definitely had been protected by its power. Zelda, dressed in a dark robe, meets Link during his earliest transformation into a wolf, and this was all due to the interaction between the Twilight and his Triforce piece. Later, she then transfers her soul and her powers to aid the dying Midna, losing her physical being in the process. Towards the end of the game, Ganondorf possesses the lifeless Zelda, who is being imprisoned in the throne room of Hyrule Castle, transforming her into an enemy known as Puppet Zelda. Link defeats Ganondorf's puppet, and Midna, with the help of the fused shadows, returns Princess Zelda to normal. Ganondorf makes another attempt on Zelda's life soon after, but she is protected by the light spirits of Hyrule, who grant her the light arrows to assist Link in the horseback part of this epic final battle. The last time she is seen in the game is when she and Link said goodbye to Midna at the Mirror of Twilight. It was such an emotional cutscene. This incarnation of Zelda was extremely close to being number 1 on my list for this video. Twilight Princess's Zelda is just on a whole different level in this game. Sure, she has the mental and spiritual fortitude like the previous 4 versions of this character, but this version of Zelda is one where her physical abilities were showcased, her skills with a bow and arrow. In Twilight Princess, Zelda uses the bow and light arrows to strike Ganondorf while accompanying Link on his horse, a feat that takes a ton of physical strength and skill to pull off, not to mention the way the game portrays her skills with a blade. Although the only time we really see her use it is when she's attacking Link because of being possessed by Ganondorf, but hey, that is neither here nor there. Princess Zelda in the Twilight Princess is also capable of communicating with the light spirits. Just as the princess and Link are about to be trampled over by Ganondorf's ghostly army, Zelda calls upon the light spirits to aid her in her time of need, and the spirits grant her the light arrow to banish evil. It's truly epic, man. This version of Zelda holds a special place in my heart because she's just everything I would picture a princess to be. Her mental, spiritual, and magical strength, right along with her physical skills like using a bow or a sword to help Link defeat the King of Evil. This version of Zelda is truly amazing. This incarnation of Zelda, in my opinion, is the greatest of all time. She literally had enough grit and just flat out top tier strength to hold back the power of the Calamity Ganon for 100 years. Yes, Zelda crew, the incarnation of Zelda that holds the #1 spot in my top 5 list of strongest Zeldas is the Zelda from the latest game in the series, Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, Zelda is not only the Princess of Hyrule, she is also an aspiring scholar who is very curious about things. She is also the leader of the Champions of Hyrule. Zelda is the mysterious voice that guides Link throughout his journey, while she contains Calamity Ganon inside of Hyrule Castle. Zelda has been training to unlock her sealing powers passed down by the royal family since she was 7 years old, 1 year after her mother unexpectedly passed away. With her mother gone, there was nobody else around with the sacred power who could teach her how to use it, leaving Zelda to figure it out on her own. 100 years prior to the events of Breath of the Wild, Zelda met with the champions. After meeting with them, she left the castle to research ancient technology, but she did not come across anything to note. During this time, she felt the presence of Ganon and devoted herself to learning all she could about ancient relics in order to stop him. She then met with a fortune teller who told her a prophecy to which Zelda felt that there was not much time left. The following day, Link was appointed as Zelda's knight, to much of Zelda's irritation. During the ceremony, Urbosa explains that Link is a living reminder of Zelda's own failures. Link and Zelda then set out to Goron City to make adjustments to the divine beast Vah Rudania to make it easier for Daruk to control. During their journey to Eldin, Zelda comes to a stop and asks him how proficient he is wielding his sword and asks him if he can hear the voice within the blade. Whatever voice is she referring to? Hint, hint. Fast forwarding here a little bit, Zelda then spends the next 100 years inside Hyrule Castle with Calamity Ganon, keeping the demon in place within the castle to prevent the destruction of the entirety of Hyrule. After Link awakens, she then telepathically guides Link throughout his journey. Unfortunately, she was not able to hold off Calamity Ganon for much longer before he developed a rudimentary body. After Link managed to disable Calamity Ganon's most powerful form, Dark Beast Ganon, she was freed and proceeded to destroy Calamity Ganon's essence. She then reconvened with Link for the first time in over 100 years and asked him if he still remembered her. And for those of you that didn't know, Link was initially left with amnesia thanks to his near-death experience. It's definitely worth noting. Sometime later, she, alongside Link, left for Lake Hylia in order to investigate what caused the divine beast Vah Ruda to stop working, and that they ultimately needed to restore Hyrule back to its former glory, which kind of sets up the events for Tears of the Kingdom. This version of Zelda is hands down the strongest Zelda to date, and as of the making of this video, in my opinion, of course. She literally had to deal with so much, from dealing with the death of her mother and not having anyone to train her, to becoming the person she needs to be, from saving Link at his dying breath and putting him in the Shrine of Resurrection, then holding Calamity Ganon at bay for 100 years plus. Wow, she's a total savage in this game, man. This version of Zelda showcases everything we've talked about up to this point. She has the mental strength and fortitude of all the previous versions of Zelda tenfold, in my opinion. She shows the struggle of becoming what she needs to be, the frustration of not having anyone to show her the way, and the burden of leading the champions as well, which is no small feat, Zelda crew. In Breath of the Wild, she also showcases her physical abilities as well by being an excellent archer, much like the Zelda in Twilight Princess. She showcases her magical abilities by being able to telepathically guide Link after he awakens from the Shrine of Resurrection 100 years later, all the while holding back the greatest threat Hyrule has ever faced. Tell me, Zelda crew, is there a stronger incarnation of Zelda? And look, if you were enjoying this video so far, I'm willing to bet the whole farm that you, my friend, are a pretty big fan of the Legend of Zelda games. Which version of Zelda do you personally think is the strongest? Did we agree on anything in this video? Let me know in the comments below. Speaking of Zelda being a complete savage in Breath of the Wild, you have to check out this video next because it's going to go over some pretty well hidden secrets that I found in Breath of the Wild, and who knows, they might surprise you too. They definitely surprised me. Much love, Zelda crew, be the light, and remember that it's dangerous to go alone, so click this video now to continue the Zelda conversation. I'll talk to you over there, crew.